Okay, we are live.
We are live. Look at that, live and direct.
I love this.
This is so great. Oh my God.
Okay, we're gonna see how this goes. I'm literally gonna go to the phone real quick to the YouTube and
Okay.
see how this looks real time. Y'all gotta pardon us, y'all. This is our first time doing this. So I want to see what this looks like real time as we do it.
Yeah. I mean, we got to start somewhere, right? I think, you know, stepping into it and doing it takes something to do that, right?
Love it. We're live. Can you see?
Hey, look at us.
We're live on YouTube right now. I'm gonna send this link out to some people I know,
Yeah.
and then
Can
we
you
can
text
get
it to
into
me?
it.
Keep texting
Yeah.
the link and I'll send it out too. So, this is Sage and Bloom. I'm Vanessa Stokes.
I am Waniki. I'm sorry, guys.
That's
I'm here.
okay.
I'm here. I'm sending you the link and then I'm done. I'm present.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
That just made me excited.
So we're here today to, just to share, do the thing that we do every week, right? So
Yeah.
um, should we give a little background? Because
I
this
think
is
we should.
this is like the second time we've done it.
Mhm.
So so my name again is Vanessa Stokes. I'm an entrepreneur and an artist, and I live on the west side of Chicago. Um, I am a community developer, and I'm developing some art and cultural spaces on the west side. And I met I met Wanaki, and we hit it off like instantly. And over a few months' time, we were looking for ways where we could connect and like create something together, since we did have such an amazing connection. And so, yeah, I'll let Wanaki, share a little bit of her experience. And, but yeah, Sage and Bloom came out of that. I'm 51 years old, right? And, just finding ways to communicate, continue to build with folks uh, through generations. Intergenerational conversation, I think, is important, especially amongst women and women of color, right? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the kind of the conversation starter, right? But every week we do a theme, and talk really about our journey, and just kind of our experiences in what we do. So
Yeah, no, I love that. That kind of like summed it all up. So I'm Wanaki. I am 35. And like Vanessa said, we met and we just kind of hit it off. A lot of alignment in our journeys. And truly, we just come to this space every Monday and we're sharing what's going on real time, things that we're processing, tools, skill, whatever is relevant to what we have going on, and that we think can be helpful to other people. We do come on and we share it. And so today we have our topic, Vanessa. What are we chatting about today? Where we going today?
so today we're going to talk about overcoming self-doubt.
Mhm.
And I'm reading this. So empowering others and ourselves, right, to tap into our unique strengths and rise above insecurities or limiting
Mhm.
beliefs.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
What
yeah,
are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Get us going.
well, I think that this is that thing that, overcoming self doubt. I mean, I think that that's the human experience, right? As part of the experience of our of being a human, is to overcome that.
Mhm.
Is to master our mind.
Mhm.
Because I think that that's where a lot of that comes from. That self doubt comes not really from the moment, but it comes from our past or past experiences, right? And then we create these stories around these past experiences that let us think that, you know, that there are limits, that there, like that there are things we cannot do, or, you know, things that we doubt that we could do, even though we know deep inside that those are the things that we're here to do, right? But there's that thing that keeps us from doing that. That's,
Mhm.
that's what that self-doubt is. And like I said, it's part of the human condition. It's part of us overcoming that. That's part of our journey, is to overcome self-doubt. So, I'm a person that throws myself into the fire. Like I'm always throwing myself in spaces and places and doing things that, you know, completely are uncomfortable. Like I think I've been doing that most of my life. So, you know, for me, it's a lot of risk. Well, it's really not. You think there's a lot of risk, but there's not really a lot of
Mhm.
risk, right? But yeah, so what are some things that you've seen about yourself, and and kind of like in your own experience with noticing when that self-doubt shows up, or limited beliefs? Like what are some things that you notice about yourself, and what kind of practices do you
Mhm.
do to overcome that?
Well, I don't know. I think I've been a person myself too, who's always kind of gone towards the things that have made me uncomfortable. But I think that also probably has a lot to do with the fact that I played organized sports for a very long time, and so building a tolerance for things that don't necessarily feel good, but I know can be good at the end, is just kind of ingrained in me. And that's not to say that when the things come up that it still doesn't register to me. It registers for sure, but I always go to them.
Mm, mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's like half the battle, right? Is to notice where the resistance is, and then not avoid it, right, or hide from it, but to go towards it. And it is great that you have that background of sports, right? Because I love sports analogies. That's it's like you're on the court, you're playing on the court. You gotta practice to be on the court. You have to be at a certain level to be on the court and play. So I think I agree. I think sports is a great way for us to kind of have a foundation in how to move into spaces that aren't comfortable, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but
Now, oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. You go ahead. No.
I was going to say, now I do think that what has probably been the hardest for me is noticing when I've resisted something more, like faster, because there are some things that just are like, oh, it's a threat, or is it a threat? And I'm going to go towards it. And then I think there are some things that we subconsciously resist that we don't realize that we're resisting. So I think for me, that probably was a thing, like bringing that to my awareness faster so that I can go towards it. Like the goal for me is to see what I'm resisting so I can go towards it. I'm gonna challenge myself to do it. But that has been the biggest challenge, not even noticing the things that I was resisting for that reason.
Mm,
Subconsciously though.
yeah, I think that's a great observation, because I think you have to first see where the resistance is. Like, you have to understand that what you're feeling is resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, I think also too that a lot of times people are in so used to being in a resistant space that they don't realize that ease is really, like the focal point. Like, you're not, ease is where you're really looking to, like, create in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
More ease than resistance, right? But I think in the society that we live in, it's so easy to live in a resistant space, right? We're conditioned to kind of be, you know, to be in a resistant kind of space, right?
Yeah.
Uh, to go against our nature, to go against, you know, um, just ways of being with people. I can use that as an example. I think
Yeah.
we don't like we're naturally not competitive beings, like, right, like that's a natural, like that's natural, like we naturally aren't competitive, right? And so when you live in this space of competition, that really goes against our nature, right?
Mm.
So this is really interesting because I was thinking about going down the street, but
Mhm.
but now that we're heading down the street of doubt, I think the question that's coming up for me is like, it is a condition, right? And it's part of our journey as humans to like notice that those things that you're saying, right?
Mhm.
Um, but we tend not to deal with it, you know. I was watching this. I don't know if you know who Bill Burr is. Do you know who
Uh,
Bill? He's a comedian, but he's like around my age, so he's a little older. He's like in his 50s, right? You probably seen him. He was on. He had a Netflix movie where he played like this like angry dad. You know, I don't know if you, but he's like this white dude. He's bald headed and he's always screaming, right? Um, but he said he there was a part in his stand up where he was talking about how men don't deal with their feelings, right? Like they don't deal with them, right? And so he started easing up on himself a little bit and easing up on his wife because he would like to push back all the time. And then finally he was just like, I'm just gonna go with it, like she wants to do this thing and she asked, like, he's like, I would normally just like basically push back on her all the time, but this time he was just like, no, you know what? Okay, that sounds like fun. Yeah, let's go. Let's go to the farmer's market. Like the things that he's like, guys usually don't want to do. They
mhm.
just want to sit around and watch sports or hang out with their friends or do whatever it is that they do. But he started easing up on her and was easing up on him, and then he took some time off, and then he realized he had some stuff that he hadn't dealt with, right? Like from his past when he was a kid, and so he just like decided to deal with it one day.
Mhm.
And he's like, I was sitting in front of the TV for like 2 days under an Afghan, like and his wife was like, hey, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm sad, and like it was interesting, like like he he acknowledged that he had a feeling outside of anger, frustration, or just numbness, or just being fine, right? And so like she was, his wife, he's been married to her for 20 years. She was like, what? Like, are you okay? Like, did I do something? And he was like, no, no. He's like, it has nothing to do with you. This has to do with some stuff that I just hadn't dealt with, right? But that's kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to like to tie self-doubt in, like
Mhm.
living inside of this condition that we live in.
Mhm.
It's like we don't, we have a tendency to allow doubt or feelings or any of those things kind of sit and not deal with them, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, like you the hardest thing for you was to notice, right,
Mhm.
that there was resistance, right? And I think that's it. It's like most people are so numb, like they don't even know, like they don't even know, like they've been living in this kind of numb state for so long, they don't even know that they're resisting anything.
Yeah. And I think that the average person is just, I feel like you've said this before, is just not really present to in their lives. They're not showing up every day, like presently. So to even see it in the first place. Because when you're present, you kind of get a little bit more curious about how you're showing up and how that might affect other people or what people are saying, like the patterns that people may notice in you that may make you like pay attention to them, but when you're not present, that means you're on autopilot. And when you're on autopilot, you're going to resort to your subconscious beliefs and habits every single time. And so I think the more that I've practiced being present in my day, it has made it easier for me to see the things that I actively have been resisting. And literally then now it just puts me in a position to choose, like, okay, well, do you want to keep resisting that? Because some things might not be good for me for the in the moment, but for me it's about getting curious about it. Why am I resisting it? Do I want to keep resisting it? Like, is it not beneficial to what I got going on? Is it something that I should be doing? And then if the only answer is I'm afraid, then that's not valid. I'm going to do it anyway. But if I can think of reasons why it may not make sense to go into that particular thing, then sure. But what I found is that most times there's no reason but fear. Because if I'm resisting it, that means it keeps coming up, which means I keep being in the space of it. So it means that I probably should be going that way. But yeah, I think most people just are not present in their lives. They don't show up for themselves the way that they think that they do. And then their spare time is in showing up for other people. So in the time that they do have, instead of giving it to themselves, they give it away too. So they can notice other things that people are resisting, their patterns, their behaviors. We become experts in other people's behaviors. And I think that the reality is we just got to get to a place where we become the expert of our own reality and our own behaviors.
Girl, that ain't nothing but a word. I mean, that's it. That's it. I mean, that's it. I mean, being present, right? Like just be. I mean, but that's it takes something just to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so hard for humans. So like, we're so stuck in this, and I'm looking at myself, right? For many years, where I like allowed all these things because of fear, right? It was limiting beliefs. I have to do this, like I got to do it like this, or I got to stay in this job, or I have to stay in this relationship, or whatever the case may be, right? And I eventually did, moved on from a lot of those things, but in the moment it seemed like doom and gloom, right? Like like in the moment it's like, oh my God, something horrible is going to happen. You know what I mean? And it never happens the way that I think is going to happen. It never happens the way that I think is going to happen. And I have to continue to remind myself that, like, that this too shall pass, or this is, this is not the end all be all. This is not, and I think that, that's also part of the practice too, is to remind ourselves, like, like, just, how grateful I am to be here, right? My accomplishments, the things that I've created, like, sometimes I just have to sit, like, and look around my living room and say, this is like, you did this, like, you created this space that you're sitting in right now,
Yeah.
And I think that helps me to, like, boost my self-confidence. It's like, so, like, creating practices keep me at a high frequency, because it's all really about energy, right? They keep me at a high frequency so I'm not beating up on myself, because I could find a million things, right, to like create those limited beliefs or limited thoughts and all of those things. But like you said earlier, like choosing, right?
Mhm.
So let me ask you this question. Like, so say you're in a conversation with somebody.
Mhm.
Say you're in a conversation with somebody that it usually ends up the same way every time you talk to them, right?
Mhm.
But this time you decide that you want to have a different kind of conversation with this person. What are some like what are some like things that might happen in those moments, right? Like that you can in the moment choose, right? Because I think that so it's like you have to create an intention first, right? Like
Yeah,
by
that's
saying
what I was going with. Yeah.
by saying, "Oh, I don't want to have that conversation that way with that person again." So that's like that's a really an intention
Mhm.
shifting that. So what would some of your like practices or in the moment? What are some things that you would like do?
Do. Well, I think even for intentions, I think I just have to say, I think a lot of the times we set an intention on like what we would not like to happen. So I want to, but we don't always name the thing that we would like to happen. So if it's a person like that, where we're having the same conversations over and over again, like the same type of conversation, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, then what I have to do for myself is I have to decide, okay, well, what value is this relationship in general, like overall? So this one thing aside, because this seems to be like a we're at a block here. But what else does this relationship do for me? And what else do I do for this relationship? And I want to create spaces where that's what we're focused on then. You get what I'm saying? So if this is like a friend, maybe we've been having a conversation about, I don't know, the same dude over and over and over again. And I just feel like I'm tired of hearing it and you don't really want to do anything different about it. You just want to vent. Then, but this is like my fun friend. Then I'm just only going to engage with you when we have fun things to do or when we have things to do that would not allow us, that doesn't require us to go deep or to have those kind of conversations. You know what I mean? I think I just start to figure out which buckets are which, because sometimes you can make the intention to not want to have the conversation again, but if that person is still stuck in that space, they might still want to have that conversation again. And so
Mm,
if coming into the same space and it's the same as it's always been, like we just at the house chilling or we're just, then it's gonna come up again. And so
right.
I mean, so I have to be straightforward and say, hey, I think that we going in circles here. Let's just, I feel like, we've already had this conversation. You know my take on it, and your take is going to evolve or whatever the case may be. So we can just, for me, leave it here. And I've had those conversations with my friend. I'm pretty much a straightforward person. I've had those kinds of conversations. And then it's like, but when we are in space, let's do this and let's talk about this. Like, what are some other things? And we can explore other things. So I just think that if that's one of the things that I'm gonna take away, then I need to figure out what is it being replaced with and how do we intentionally create the environment to use those things that it can now replace. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
yes, very much so. So what I heard, and this is pretty amazing, right? Because I don't think most like well, I'm thinking about myself. I haven't in my past, if I got to a certain point with somebody, and this is, because of, it doesn't even really matter where it came from, but of course it came from my childhood, like everything else, right?
Yeah.
But if I would cut somebody off completely.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
would just like, all right, I would just move on. You know what I mean? And I think, like and for the reason that I just didn't know how to, like, I had it, you know what it was this. I had it that that person would not be able to handle what I would say to them.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say anything. And this is great. That was because um, when I was a kid, I was always told that I was I didn't have tact. Like I was rude and, I was crass and I said things that were hurtful to people. And as a kid, like I don't think kids do that, but of course they don't, right? They just tell it like it is, right? For a lot of kids do. So anyway, as I would go through life and be in relationships with people, if I was in a situation like you shared, like if a person that I was friends with was talking a lot about a dude or whatever and it was irritating the hell out of me, I would just not talk to them anymore. I would just like find somebody else or find
Yeah.
other situation, or I wouldn't even be bothered with it. And so like and which to me is like that's not cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's not cool. That's not, that's not cool to do that. And so over the years, I've been implementing what you just said, right? Is like noticing when those things come up, having my relationships that do, this is my home girl over here, we do this thing together and that's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's still like, she's still my home girl. We still, hang out and do that thing, but that's it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like, I know I'm like that's like healthy, emotional, like intelligent patient, you know what I mean? Instead of being this like, you know, um, just passive aggressive, like way of communicating, just doesn't work, right? Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting that I've kind of, noticed my journey change, how it, like just implementing more listening and being with like people, my own feelings, the things that are going through my mind, and being present to those things that lead me to be able to create a new kind of relationship with the
Yeah.
people I love. You know what I mean? So it's not like, oh, you didn't fit into this
Mhm.
thing, oh well, fuck you, like you didn't fit in there. But yeah, that's great. Thank you for
And I
sharing.
think, and I think too, it has a lot of the times it can have to do with the fact that we really, you got to think about how we're socialized. Like we meet our group of people and we think that's supposed to be our group of people. And so, we're not very flexible with it. If you don't fit into what I think my group of people should be, then you don't fit in at all. And so it can
Right.
change. Like if you know what I mean? And so it's just, I think one, just knowing like people are layered. So if we're only stuck on this one layer, it's probably because we're not accessing other parts of ourselves in general. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if we are layered and we do access different parts, then it really doesn't hurt for us not to access this one together, because this
Right.
one doesn't seem to be one that we're aligned in anymore. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? But the other ones, they can still work if you're open to it. Now, I do have to say, with that comes the reality that some people don't like that up front way, and it might not rub everybody the right way. I can definitely name at least twice where these are like real upfront conversations, and that honestly made them not feel safe in the space anymore because it felt like a threat. Because most times we're not honest in our friendships, we're not honest with ourselves, so we're not honest with the relationships that we have, and so we just avoid naturally. And
Mm.
so it could feel like an attack too, right? But in that case, it's just one of them things where you got to be clear, like, your intentions, you're not attacking that person, this is just something that you're not willing to do, and they have the right to agree with it or to not agree with it, and then the final decisions can be made. And I think that just being okay with detachment and moving away. Once you know that you've done all that you can, that's just always been my biggest thing. Like, did I have a conversation? Did I check my points? I did. Okay, so that's what allows me to walk away and not have to worry about closure, going backwards, or doing anything else. You know what I mean? So because I've
Yeah.
kind of always been that person where it's like, oh, it was an opportunity to talk about this. I know we talked about this a few times. So it's not a ghosting thing because we're both very clear that this is no longer a line and the tension is clear, you know. But I just think everybody deserves that right to know, because sometimes people are bringing up, I don't know. I just noticed how we are mostly in relationship. If you just pay attention, like most people conversations are about negative things. It's about, so these are just conversations we're used to having. So what may seem like nagging or something that's repetitive and going nowhere to us literally does not seem that way to them. So it's important to know and to at least bring it up so that they can notice it. So even if they do have a bad reaction with us, which they might if it's their first time hearing it, at least it's a seed planted. So they know now moving forward, they'll see it again and it'll come up for them again if they keep doing it. And then that'll be their work I don't know. I think I've just learned a lot. I learned how to manage a lot of different relationships. I learned at a very young age that not everybody is going to be everything to you. So you have buckets and you figure out what best fits people, put them in the correct bucket so that you set them up for success in your life.
Yeah.
But you got to communicate it. You got to communicate it and then give people an option to change, to fit that or to decide that that's not for them. But either way it goes, like, that's a beautiful way. Either way it goes, like, we either in alignment or we not. And that's cool too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to to have boundaries. And I'm thinking about what our also what I'm hearing is building confidence too, right? Because you're building confidence in yourself to be authentic with the people that are in your life, right? Like, and I mean, I'm just like looking at my life, and for many years, I wasn't that way at all, and, I thought I was, but, as I look,
I can see where I probably,
but I actually, that story that I had in my mind about, it was a very powerful story that I created to protect myself, just around, pleasing people, or, not wanting to look bad, or any of those things. And so, like, I wouldn't be my full self with people that I really liked, because I was afraid if I was really myself, then they wouldn't like me, right? So I mean, even though it would come out here and there, you know what I mean? Of course, because, you can't hide from yourself. You know what I mean? Like, as much as you try to hide from yourself, you can't, right? So, like, it would come out here and there, but it wasn't the theme of my life, was for me to be truly authentic in areas and times that I thought I was being confident. It was still a shadow there that I was showing to the world, and not my true self, right?
I see. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because like I said, if you're sitting down with people and you like noticing stuff, and you're sharing it with them, and you say, hey, I noticed that, you talk about that dude that in your life that you're with that doesn't work, and you keep on talking about it, dancing about it. Like, what's that? You know what I mean? Like, what's up with that? And, like, and so, like, people would not do that with me. And if they did, I would have gotten very reactionary. I would have reacted in those spaces, right? And and probably got emotional or something to that extent. And I probably wouldn't have talked to that person again.
Mm-hmm.
Or just not talk to them for a while. You know what I'm
You would have
saying?
resisted it.
I would have totally resisted it.
Yeah.
But like in time, I started to see that because I was welcoming that kind of feedback.
Yep.
I was, when people were saying things to me, I didn't take it personal, and I would be like, okay, got that. You know what I mean? But that was just through a lot of unlayering, all of that work of, going beyond what I think, going towards the blind spot. You know what I mean? Going
Yeah.
towards the spaces that like I resisted.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes
Very
back. But it's like but the only way to know that you can resist it first is to have those moments where you actually did. So it makes sense that you would start off any particular way, because until you know it, until it's brought to your conscious, you don't really realize it to change it. But that's why it's important for people to say it, because how else do you know it?
right. That's so
And
true. That's so true.
and that's another reason why I honestly don't have a hard time with saying it now, because if I don't say it, there's an opportunity, there's a chance that you really don't know, which is why you probably show up in every space the same way, doing the same thing. You feel comfortable enough. We just have a responsibility to be honest with people, with each other, but that requires a level of honesty with yourself. You got to be willing to do it with yourself.
Wow.
Because when you're honest with yourself, and you know how hard the truths are, because I'm really thinking about it when you're saying like because I assume that they, whatever the outcome would be. And I think a lot of the times we just assume that people can't handle it. But it's something different when you've gone through your own process and you're honest with yourself, because yes, you know how hard the process is, but then you also know that it's something that you need and you cannot skip. And because you've been willing to put yourself through it, you actually don't care if whether or not another person can't handle it, because you know they need it. Now you might start to think about how you can say it differently so they could actually receive it, like how you can create the space. But when you're honest with yourself and you know how important that is for yourself, then you know how important it is for somebody else. And then it makes it easier to say it. So I might think about a creative way to say it, or a way to make it not land like this, but it has to get said, because what if you don't know?
Good point. Very good point.
What if you don't?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I think that's part of our responsibility, right? Is to share, especially with the people that we love, and share what we see and what we hear, when we're listening and we're present. I think it's important to do that, right? And I think that makes a whole lot of sense to when we're with people that we enjoy being with, to be honest, right? And tell them what we think in a respectful way, right?
It matters how you say it. To most people, it does matter.
It does matter. I think, like one of my friends, and I love her for this, like she asks me first if I want advice from her. And I love that.
Because she's compelled to give it either way. Like,
Yeah.
So learn how to do it a better way.
Right. So she asks me first, right? I'm like, that is the most respectful way to give somebody advice, because you're giving me a chance to choose.
Yeah.
To say yes or no. And there have been times where I've said yes, and there have been times where I said no.
Oh, yeah.
And because like not even does I don't even think the reason matters, because it doesn't, right?
Yes.
It's just the act of give. That's, to me, that's giving.
Yeah.
care so much about me that you want to make sure that it lands right, right? You want to make sure that it doesn't cause friction. That shows to me that that person really loves me enough to ask first. And so like I started doing the same, like I started, asking first, be like, hey, I'm hearing something. Can I share what I hear? Can I share something? Because I think that it does, like, at that point, I think people are more open because you're asking permission, to like be honest. But
Or
yeah.
you plant the seed of curiosity too. So like when you say no, it doesn't mean that you don't go home and think about the fact that that person wanted to ask you something. And so when you get around to it, you might come back and say, hey, what was that you saw? What do you think? So it's a really great strategy in general. It's don't plant it one way or the other.
Yeah. And I did think, and the time I said no, it did make me think deeper about the thing. I didn't go back and ask her opinion or her advice, but it did give me space to like think about it a little bit more, So I think it did.
I wonder why you didn't go back to ask what she was thinking after you thought about it, just to kind of see.
Yeah, I think that that's a good question. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was satisfied with the result that I got, and it wasn't, the result that I got was, was kind of answered in the space of her asking
the question.
Yeah. Fair so, like, I was satisfied with, it just never came up again. So I never brought it up, and she never brought it up. So, but yeah, I mean, that, man, isn't it interesting? Just like being with people and respecting people and taking time to really truly be with them and, care about folks, to have a delivery that doesn't, well, I'll take that back, because there's some people that don't matter what I say and how I say it, they still get irked by me. So
not ready to hear it. Some people have this mindset of right message, wrong messenger, and I really hate that for us. I hate it for us because we think that truth needs to be delivered. It needs to be delivered by a person who looks a certain type of way, and that's just not how this works. And so I think that a lot of people miss a lot of opportunities to grow and to see themselves and to evolve because they're too focused on the person delivering, the message. And I don't know. And that's why I say tone matters to some people. For me, it used to matter until I got to this place, because tone mattered then, because it was more so about ego. I mean, who are you talking to? Why would you could be right, but that was all deflection, right? Because I really actually don't want to deal with what you said or what you're bringing up. Now, tone isn't a really big deal for me. Like, if you're a person who I know and I trust, and even if you're not, but you say something that is aligned to something I've heard before, I'm gonna listen to it. Now, yeah, I'm gonna listen to it. I really am. And it really doesn't matter the person to me. I think a lot of the times too, we're looking at people and we're looking to see if what they're saying aligns to their life and matches their life. So if their words matches their actions. And again, I think this is another trap, because one thing I know for sure is that a person can absolutely teach what they know, and it does not matter that they follow what they know. You know what I mean? So for me, it comes down to what's more important. Is the information that you're giving me valid more important than the fact that you may or may not be listening to your own information? The information, as long as it sounds valid to me, I want it. And I don't really care who it comes from. And I don't care if you're actually following your information or not, because that's a whole nother battle. Like, it's a difference between knowing something and then implementing it. And when you understand that at this level, then you don't get thrown off by whether or not the person who's telling me is qualified or not. You care more about, is it true? Does it sound like it could be true? Let me get curious about it and do some deep diving. But that's evident of where a person is in their journey, I think.
Yeah.
I think the further along you are in your journey, the more fluid you are. And a whole lot of these parameters that we create, like how you say it, the tone, the space, is it safe? Like all of those things don't become the biggest factor anymore. You just care if it's true or not. And then from there, you're going to take it and do your work. Like, is it true? Do I like it? Do I want to keep it true? Do I want to change it? You know, I just take it and take it back to me. But as long as you're caught up on how it's being said, who's saying it, if the space is safe, or what, all of these other things that can turn into a distraction, then you'll never really face yourself. You'll have every reason not to every time.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right, girl. I heard a couple of things in what you said. Like, first, you know, we're meaning making machines, right?
What do you mean?
Meaning that we create meaning.
Meaning. I thought you said meaning. I'm like, meaning.
Meaning.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, meaning.
Yeah.
So we create meaning when it, like, what things mean, you know. So like you said about tone and inflection and all of these things, right? We create the meaning individually of what those things are, right? But they're really nothing, right? It's like one of my coaches one time, she would say, don't go by what people's face looks like, right? Because, like, you know, people read people all the time and they look at their face, and their face might have a certain face on it, and doesn't necessarily mean that that's the thing that's going on in their mind, you know? And so she was like, that person might have gas. And that,
and not saying anything about it, trying to let it out quietly.
right. Right. And when she said that, I was like, damn. Because, you know, I'll be so quick, you know, in my past, I'll be so quick and be like, ooh, look at that face that person has, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that person, that must mean this thing. And it doesn't mean a damn thing. Don't mean shit.
A lot of things. It can mean not one thing or a lot of them all at one
right.
time.
So, you know, like, I agree with you. I think that when you are further along in your path of self-discovery of who you are, those things that show up, those triggers, those, you know, those you know, the meanings of things become less and less, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's really about, in the moment, the message that I'm getting. Like, mm-hmm. If I was driving down the street and I was having a conversation with myself in my car, and I was getting a download, right? Like, I was in the space, it was very clear, and I heard this thing, it pops into my head, and it was like, do this, do that. And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing I saw was this man with this bright orange shirt on that said, trust God, you know? So, you know, it could mean a whole bunch of things, right? In that moment, it was so clear. I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think you know, I don't know why the hell I just brought that up. I'm thinking about it now. I was like, why did I say that? What's the purpose in that? It floated away, girl. It's like, so yeah, I really like this conversation today about, you know, like, overcoming self-doubt, mm-hmm. and becoming, you know, overcoming limited beliefs and how we see, you know, how we are.
I think too, there is like a shift from the focus of being doubt to just knowing that you're worthy. And I know it sounds like it would probably be the same thing, but I don't know. For myself, I'm just learning in this particular position that I'm in that there's a shift. I think the doubt and all of those things is more like survival mode, you know, and that does have to do with a lot of the things that's connected to it, the experiences, these beliefs you created as a result. And then I think there's another part of it that is, okay, why are you doubting this versus why don't you believe you deserve it? Like, why are you not, like, why don't you think that you're worthy? Or do you know that you're worthy, or those things? And I guess you probably got to have those kind of conversations together and separate, because they do connect for sure. They connect. Right. I don't know, at this particular level, my questions to myself is not like a doubt thing. Like, even if I'm resisting it, it's like, what, it's not a lack of like skill or talent, or do I believe that I belong here anymore for those reasons. I think it's just when you get to another period of it, like expansion of things that you couldn't even have thought of, or, you know, dreamed of, and it's just happening for you real time. I think there is a level of shock that can happen, because it could feel like it's too good to be true. And then it's like, wait, do I deserve all of this though? Like, I don't doubt that I deserve to succeed and to win and to do all of these things, but am I worthy of it, to look like this? And so then the conversation becomes worthy, because then the other part, you know, is that whatever vision you have in your head the first time to get you going, typically is not how it looks at the end. It's probably way bigger than what you ever thought. And so it's like, I don't think you have doubts that you can be successful on your path the way that you saw it. For some people, it's what happens when it's actually bigger than the way that you saw it. Now, do you believe that you can deserve that and you're worthy of that? And I think that's where a lot of people may get stuck too sometimes, because you know, and I don't know if that connects to doubt exactly, or if it's like a separate thing and it connects eventually, or it's just like another layer to it that you peel back once you hit a certain level. But you just got to start asking yourself, you know, different questions at different levels for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm reading this book right now, and it's called The Inner Work. And they have this, I'm looking up here it is. Hold on. They have these different states of consciousness in this book. And so okay, I found it. So I found it. So they have like different spectrum. So here we go. They have the 3D reality, which is self as body. So this is suffering and victim abuser mentality. So all of these themes of wounding is what they call it, are insecurity, violation, inadequacy, distrust, loss, overwhelm, judgment, and rejection. So inside of this 3D reality, the suffering space, those are the things that happen, right? And I think that that's a lower vibration, like you were saying, right? And then when you start asking yourself these questions and noticing these things, it opens you up to a different reality. So the next reality is the 4D reality. And they have self as mind, and relief is kind of the feeling that you get, and self-empowered mentality. And these are the themes of healing. So understanding, acceptance, self-motivation, ease, accountability. Those are the themes of healing. And then that there's a transition into spiritual reality. And this is the 5D reality. Self as spirit. Ecstasy is the feeling. And it's a unity mentality, right? And so these are the themes of enlightenment: our freedom and happiness, and love and inner peace.
Mm.
So, oh wait, and I did forget one thing. So when you're going from your 3D to your 4D reality, from self as body to self as mind, there's a transition into self honesty.
Yes.
So I think that that's what happens when you start to acknowledge the like what's really happening inside of you, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's those are the questions, right? When you start transitioning into different realities, different consciousnesses, right? You start to ask yourself deeper questions,
Yeah.
right?
You
Not
have to.
not like the why questions, but more like the what.
Mhm.
You know, like asking yourself what instead of how, but
Mhm.
like what do I get out of this by
Mhm.
what is the cost? What's the payoff? Like those are the questions that I used to ask myself in those moments. Like, what do I get from being bitter?
Yep.
Like, what's the benefit?
Doing for me.
Yeah, what does it do? Like, what am I getting from it? Right. And once I started asking myself, like, what I get from being bitter, it's pretty interesting. Like, I get to feel right about whatever I think somebody did to me.
Mhm.
I get
Mhm.
to be right because they did this thing to me. You know what I mean? Instead of accepting the fact that I am being responsible for myself and choosing that thing, you
Mhm.
know, like I chose it, which is
Mhm.
powerful, right? Because I'm able to choose. But just like I chose that thing, I could choose something else.
You can choose something totally different. And you understand that you chose it. This is for me what I've learned. It's helped me not actually end things on bad terms because once I can acknowledge, you know what, I can't even. I put myself in this situation. I let this happen. Because 9 times out of 10, you probably was going back and forth with yourself anyway. You probably was already thinking that it could happen. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Your intuition is already. It already hit you, so you already knew it could happen. You did, but then you continued on. So when it does happen, it's like, yeah, you did do this, and it did make me feel this way. So I mean, I could be mad at it. I could be, but if I understand that I allowed this to happen, that I knew I was already thinking this in my head, so I actually got to hold myself accountable to it. Now I all I can think about next are my next steps because I just gave myself the power again. So for me, it's do I want to move forward in this thing again or do I want to do something differently? But I guess I'm saying all of that to say that just that understanding in itself has allowed me to save a lot of relationships because now I'm not having the type of conversation with the energy and the tone of you should have or you did this and this is what it when I already kind of knew coming in that this could happen. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Now we can have a conversation about the situation, but the energy is completely different now because I've already accepted my role in it. So now we're only having this conversation because I'm actually not trying to get you to accept or see anything. I just want to communicate how the experience made me feel. And then we can talk from there about how we can move forward. But in terms of like no, you did this and it felt this way because I want you to understand it and in some way be apologetic or whatever the case. Like, no, I've already assumed responsibility for it. So I'm just communicating it now because I would hate for it to happen again. So I got to
Yeah,
bring it to your attention because the next time it's going to be on you, you
right.
know,
I
me
think,
and you. And I'm going to
yeah,
have to move on.
I think it's important to share impact. I think it also goes back to like what you said earlier about, like where somebody is on their journey, not necessarily like I know we want people to be where we want them to be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're not necessarily on, you know, we're not on the same.
Mm-hmm.
We might not be on the same in the same, you know, the same place on our journey. So, I might say something to you that is shocking, um, and it's just me whisper. I mean, I hardly ever raise my voice anymore, like I hardly ever do it. And when I do, there's something there. Either I'm tired or frustrated. There's something there.
Yeah.
Um, but like, like I think that you're absolutely right. Like, you know, um, so so how I do want to share one thing, kind of off topic a little bit, as we're going into our. We've been on here an hour. I want to share something. And this goes back to the theme of today.
Uh-huh.
So I think I've had a bit of self-doubt around being, and then you kind of pushed, well, you set me up for success. So I just want to say that. Because initially you were like, let's I was like, what if we just do audio? You're like, yeah, that sounds cool. But then after a while we did, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 different sessions that we did that were audio generated, right? And then you said to me one day, like, hey, why don't we just stream it? And I was like, okay. So like I've dibble dabbled in this world over the last 10 years, but it always, I love being in conversation with people. I love talking with people. I love, this is to me, it's a space of creation when two people are together, and two or more people are together, and we're sharing, and we're looking and experiencing life. Like, I think this is part of the reason why we're here, right? So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and so over the last year I was just kind of like about it, and then finally at the end of the year I was just like, okay, Vanessa, you got to jump in the water, like stop playing. And then you're like, okay, let's dream, and I'm like, okay, sure. But it's been like that, like over the last couple of months. It's like one thing after the other of wherever the resistance is. It's like, I got to keep on moving through it, because I see who I am in all its fullness, right? Like, I see who I am and the impact that I have in the world. So for me, like, one of my friends said, you're doing a disservice when you're not fully being your authentic self all the time. So at the beginning of the year, I put out all of these proposals. I've owned my own business for 6 years. Over the last 6 years, I haven't had any problems getting any business, and I literally put out 4 or 5 proposals at the end of the year, and now one came through, right? And so I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? Like, what? So, I'm still fielding conversations, meeting with people, doing all the things. And it's still like, zero. Some, but like, it keeps coming up 0, 0, 0, 0, right? But then I have all this creative stuff with like Sage and Bloom and Finding Alignment, just my blog, and just me writing, and getting back to center, that I just jumped in the water. So I called you on Saturday and I said, hey, I'm gonna launch this fundraising campaign for all of my projects, and so I'm doing it today. And so this is that, it like goes back to the conversation around, self-doubt, limited beliefs. I had it in my mind, all these things, when I like, oh, I won't, this won't happen. And, like all types of stuff that, I was just noticing my brain was saying. I was like, well, hold on a minute. Hold on. Like, you fundraised for an organization almost $4 million. And they gave me 800, this one space gave me $800,000 contract that I didn't even have to write for. They just gave it to me. So if that is what I get from just being present, just
Mhm.
imagine what I can get by being present and being active in my presence, right?
Yep.
So this whole weekend I've been writing and, figuring out how I was going to post it. So after the podcast today, I'm going to be posting my GoFundMe campaign
Love that.
to raise money for all of the projects that I have going on the West Side. So these are projects that I've been working on for, man. So the Out West Gallery and Cafe, I got that grant in 2022. So that's 3 years I've been working.
3 years.
But I just got the approval from the city in January. So I
Two
got
years ago.
yeah, in 2022. So, so now, like it's it's finally coming around, right? And so I sent it out and I've already gotten some responses like,
This. Okay, I'm playing with this as we go because I feel like this is a good opportunity to pick to like really in detail go over it, like how you did the video today. And then I'm gonna make you main screen because then what we can also do is put the link to the GoFundMe in the description as well.
oh, okay, good.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's tell everybody about the vision and I was gonna do this at the end, but we might as well do it
Yeah.
now here. And then that way we are gonna put the link in the GoFundMe in the description as well, so people can support and they can know what they're supporting and all the things. So you got the floor.
Thank you. So so I'm an artist, I'm a photographer and a writer and a curator. And um I started this community work really working with moms and babies when my son, who was 19, or will be 19 next month, he's 18. Uh, when he was born and I started working with moms and babies, that's what really started community work for me. But I moved to the West Side in 2013. My family had already been here for about 10 years. And I moved in with my mom and my sister. My dad had passed away in 2011. And so I really, at that point, solidified my dedication to my father and his work. So my dad had the first Black-owned photography studio in Chicago. And because of that work he did, I got a bunch of different public art projects. So I got a public art project in 2017 for the Year of Public Art through the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, which also we also received through CTA. We were my dad's images are at the Central Station and the Austin Station on the Green Line on the West Side. So that kind of started the journey out west, like doing these public art displays. Then I started working with Westside Health Authority because of the work that I was doing with them. We created pop courts on the corner of Chicago and Lockwood, which is an outdoor plaza space. That outdoor plaza space became a Department of Planning and Development, a program called POP, Public Outdoor Plaza. So they created 11 more of these outdoor plaza spaces with pop courts on the West Side was the first one. And so from that development, I was invited to create a gallery and a cafe, and that's what was funding approved by the city of Chicago in January. So the Out West Gallery and Cafe, which will be right next to Pop Courts in Chicago and Lockwood, and that project also brought the other projects that I'm working on North Avenue. So I met John Womack and Jasmine Garcia, just being in the community and sharing the work that I'm doing around art and culture. He invited me to be a partner with him and Jasmine, and we're opening Third City Cafe and Third City Studio on North Avenue in Luna, and this with this wider vision of the North Austin Arts District and North Avenue and Central. There's a lot of vacant space along North Avenue, especially in that intersection at North and Central. There was a Save-A-Lot that was there that closed during the pandemic. There's a Popeyes over there that just closed last year. There's a bunch of just vacancies on North Avenue. And we think that by creating like a district where we can promote art and culture right there at North and Central, that can bring business and continue to build along the corridor. So this fundraising campaign that I'm launching today is to help to continue to leverage this work and to continue to build along the corridors of North Avenue and Chicago Avenue, but also this wider kind of plan or vision or model, you could say, of community building, like us community folks building within our community. So essentially that is the fundraising campaign. So how are we going to change our communities, y'all? We are the ones that are going to change our communities one step at a time. But how do we support the people that are doing this work, like me? It is by us supporting people like me in community doing this work. So yeah, I'm gonna share the link to the GoFundMe. Please donate, share it with your networks, and yeah, like I'm really excited to continue to bring more of this type of content. Sage and Bloom. There's other conversations that I'm building with other West Side organizers. Crystal is an organizer, a political organizer on the West Side, and we're building some things together, some conversations, ways for us to help organizations and people, and around policy, which I think is a big deal. How are we going to create sustainability in our community? So I know it was a mouthful. That was a lot. But when I've spent 18 years of my life helping to build community, it is a journey, right? And I just wanted to share like the little baby steps that I made from just working with moms and babies, being right where I was at that time with a newborn and not knowing anything about what to do with this child. I'm like, whoa, I'm like, what do I do with it? What do I do with this thing? And that brought me to community, right? Like I created community around that because if I was feeling it, I knew there were other women feeling the same way. Yep. Same thing when I was out west. So here I am, and just excited to be authentically me all the time.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, we are going to add the link in the description, so it will always be there. And then obviously as we go on through the weeks, we'll do updates, maybe like a spotlight part where you're giving updates on the construction and all that types of stuff. I think it'll be great. And it's a great opportunity for people to be a part of it by contributing, a part of history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is like, what does it look like? Like, what does it look like to have community actually build itself?
It's a great question.
and I think that it starts with people that are doing the work.
Yep.
It starts with the people that have been doing the work for a while, that have the connections, that can help support emerging projects and emerging creatives and emerging artists and businesses, right? Like I want people to use me. I also want to maintain my life to do this work, right? Like, and it's an important part of just self-preservation, just to keep me alive in my life and with my kids, and all of those things are important to continue to sustain, like being committed to community and community development, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I, like it took me a while to do it because I don't know. I think it went back to all of the stuff that we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like some doubt about something. I don't know, but I put it aside. I said, "Look, girl, look, this is it."
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, what about like the doubt, or in terms of like just avoiding rejection in general? Like just that idea of what that could have meant to you before, for somebody to deliberately say no, or just to avoid it altogether, knowing you put your best efforts forward, just avoiding that rejection.
I think that's just part of my journey, like the
Mhm.
journey to a whole and complete Vanessa Stokes, right? Like
Yeah.
I am whole and complete. I showed up whole and complete. I'm always whole and complete. When I start to doubt the fact that I'm not whole and complete, that is not me.
Mhm.
So I had to really get clear about who I am.
Mhm.
And that's the work. It's the
Mhm.
work to distinguish this voice that I hear that is breeding a bunch of fear and
Mhm.
resentment and bitterness and resistance, or
Mhm.
this other choice is to pick the choice of who I am,
Today.
fully present, whole and complete.
Mhm.
That's the difference. It's like I am no longer choosing that
Mhm.
person from my past. I'm
Mhm.
choosing this new person, this
Yeah.
new folks, which is which is a little uncertain, like
Mhm.
I know, being familiar with the outcomes of what happens when I pick my old thought pattern. I know what's going to happen there, right?
Mhm.
Because it's familiar. So I would continue to pick the familiar,
Thing.
the automatic thing, right? Which always brought me down the same path, like the same, I'll get the
And
same result.
And it might be important to know too, like a lot of the things when they're familiar could have also served us too at a certain point, depending on where we were.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying, in life. And so it's like not only is it, you can't choose it just because it's not familiar, but also does it even serve where I say I want to go? Like,
Right,
does it benefit me
right,
to not choose this now? Because
right,
maybe, and I only say that too because I think sometimes when people reach like the space that you're in, and they start to make themselves wrong forever choosing it before, in the
you're
past
right,
before. And
right.
it's like, no, it was the best choice at that time. And so it's important for people to know that just because you're choosing differently in the present doesn't make what you did in the past wrong. And I
No,
think that could be a large part of the reason why people don't choose
yeah,
differently in the present, because then it's this idea of, well, have I been wrong all of these years? Now I got to deal with what that means and all of the thing. And it's like, no, it just means that whatever choice you were making before, it just really doesn't serve where you are today or where you
right,
say you're trying to go. And it
right,
really is that simple. And it's not about if whether or not you were right or wrong in the past. It's,
right.
did it make sense then versus now?
You are so right. That's a great observation. That's a really great observation to see that. And yeah, I think for a good part of my life, a good portion of my life, I was in that space. But I think the difference now is that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong. It's
So
just
like
sometimes.
that's where I'm
Yeah,
always in that space of there's nothing wrong with me.
yeah.
However, I got here and I'm here and I love my life. I love myself. I love everything that I'm creating and what I've created. I love it. So I have nothing but love for my present state. So all of that which happened
Had to.
was meant to happen for me to be here now in
Yep.
this present state that I'm in. So yeah, so I'm like, but yeah, those questions did come up for me along the way. That question of, dang, this took a long, like, did
Yeah.
it have to take that long? You know what I mean? Like, did it have that's a question that's always there, and it's like, yeah, it took as long as it took. It doesn't matter because
Yeah.
it's always now. It's
Yeah.
always now, so it doesn't matter. So perfect place that I'm at. So like I'm just excited to share with the world.
Yeah.
I'm excited to actually move these projects forward, to continue to move them forward, to continue to bring all the things that art and culture bring to communities, especially ours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just excited, girl. I'm like, come
I
on,
love this. I love this as because we do got to start to wrap this up. We're in the hour,
yeah,
21 minutes. But I love it because um people get to follow this journey real time. I think that's what's probably gonna make like this podcast pivotal because we're literally documenting it real time, like with your real emotions. And I'm real confident that this thing is either going, and I mean just like the podcast aspect, it's either going to hit now or for sure later because you are living out exactly what you're saying. You know, and same for me. So that means that exactly what you see and what you're working on is going to pass. And then you're going to have all of this documentation showing people what it looks like when you face resistance. Like literally, and that was the theme of this whole thing. Like dealing with doubt and fear and going towards the resistance. When you face resistance, it looks like starting a GoFundMe for your business and not just thinking that GoFundMes are for funerals. You know what I mean? Like starting your GoFundMe to support, like to create more life into the community because it can be used for that too. So it's also showing people a new way to fundraise and to reimagine ways to amass resources from the people that they already have in their communities. And you're showing them real time how to do it. And you're being very clear that this was something that you were resisting for a while. And so it was work that had to be done to even get to this point of putting yourself out there. And I don't know, I could go on. This could be a whole different topic for next week because I think this is the part that people don't understand. Like when they teach like classes or courses and when they give information, they don't take into account that there's a whole emotional process or work that has to go on with that individual by themselves to decide to say yes at every level. Like they may say yes to the things that are not a problem for them. So yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll start this. But it's time to release this GoFundMe. Am I going to say yes to that? And it's like you're showing people how to say yes, how to do it too while you're still uncertain. And you're being honest about it and transparent about it. And I think that's the type of shit that people need to see real time. They don't need another. And the crazy thing is you are an expert at what you do. You're just doing it from a different capacity. So it's still a new beginning. But what they don't need is just another expert to tell them that you can do it. I'm gonna show you real time what you can do it looks like, because it looks like knowing I can but still doubting it and having to push myself and talk myself through it and have conversations like this and then doing it anyway and then being scared. Like yes, there's a whole lot that goes into the you can do it, and you're showing them like the layers and the complexity I think of that thing. And it's important for people to see it real time because now nobody can say to you once you make it to the other side of this project, oh yeah, it's easy for you to do because you said, because you know how people like to really discredit what it took to actually accomplish the thing, and they like to say, well, it's easy for you to do it because you know this person and you know this and you got this, and it's like, yeah, but I didn't always know this person, and I didn't. It wasn't always easy for me to do it, and I have proof. I can show you because I documented this whole thing, and you can see that it wasn't about if whether or not it was easy. I wanted it. And so I decided to stretch myself, whichever way I needed to stretch myself to make it happen. And people gonna see that real time. So I'm excited for this. I think this is dope.
Yeah, me too. And thank you for that. Like, I think that's part of the reason why too that I kind of kept myself quiet a little was by not by you know like not wanting to show the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
um or just the experience of it, because it's like it's a very vulnerable space and I'm in, very vulnerable, right? Because like
I'm
there's a
smiling.
lot of part to this thing that I don't know, but I do know somebody that knows, right? And
Yeah.
so like by because of that, I I say things to people like, you know what? I don't know this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who do I know that I think knows this thing or knows somebody that knows it, right?
That part.
That means I got to go to them and say, I don't know this thing. Can you help me with this thing? You know? And so that I have to trust people. I got to trust myself. I got to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and ask for help. You know, all of the things that I think that many people have a hard time doing, especially entrepreneurs who don't want anybody's help a lot of time. So, you know, like, so that's the part that I'm really excited to share with people. Like, this is not a one woman band, right? This is what community looks like when we work together and we continue to build on ourselves individually, but then also collectively, right? And so
Yeah.
like I'm just excited to share that experience with people so they could see, yeah, it took me almost 3 years to get here. You know what I mean? And now it's starting, you know. But I
Just
did
to
have to
get
do
to the starting point, it took you 3 years to get to start it. That's what people got to hear. Like it took you 3 years to start it because you already
exactly.
had because you got the funding, but to even be able to move forward after securing the funding, it has taken 3 years. People
Exactly.
see it. They got to see it because this is how it works in reality. This is how the big things that we see brought to life is how they
Yes.
work.
Yeah. And I think that that's the part that I think is that will continue to show me as an expert and also to show community members and folks that community development takes a lot of time.
And
Takes a
intention.
lot of time, a lot of perseverance, lots of blood, sweat, and tears. Like, you know, I was crying this morning. I was so excited. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's just it's taken so much, um, just like letting go of shit. Like you're not being attached to anything. It's taken a lot just for me to get here right now. So I'm excited.
This is
It's
dope.
going through my body, and I'm gonna
Listen.
text you right now this link to the GoFundMe.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it to the description. Um, I mean, honestly, I think that's how we end it. At the end of the day, don't sleep on Chicago kids. This is why. This is why I wear it. This is why I say it. This is why I believe in it. I just feel like, but to your point, took a lot of letting go and shitting on your end. So it's also like Chicago kids, you can't sleep on yourself. You got work to do too. That's
Yeah,
the only way you can wake people up is by actually being the thing.
yeah,
It's not about yelling from the top of your lungs and trying to convince people and change their minds. All you got to do is be it, and it'll wake them up. So that means you can't sleep on yourself.
can't.
You can't. And that's so. As we wrap this up, what would you say is your takeaway of the more of the day? And it's Monday. We like to do these on Mondays. Love it. I love to start my Mondays like this. But what would you say is your takeaway then? Your takeaway of the day from this conversation?
Let's see. A few things came in my mind, but I think the one that is most prominent is go towards where there's resistance.
Yeah.
Like, go in that direction. And everything that you are looking to create in your life is in that. It's in the resistance. So go where, go in that space. So that to me is the combination of my life. It's like
Yeah.
going where there is resistance has brought me here, and I'm just very thankful.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for it.
I love that. And to piggyback up off of that, yes, go where there's resistance. And depending on where you are in your journey, if you are a little bit more advanced or you have the capacity for it, I would say that when you go towards the resistance, don't get so caught up in the why you have been avoiding it in the first place. Once you notice, because then that's a whole other journey. You're going to take yourself down a whole other path. And it's not to say why you were avoiding it isn't important. It's important, but it's also more important to just do the thing first and then reflect on it later. Reflect on the whole experience, and then you can get to what was the thing that you were afraid of. Why do you think you were resisting? When did this first happen? Because what happens is we start to ask those questions and we go back to our childhood, and then we never bring it back to the present to actually go towards the thing. We get paralyzed at the shadow work. And again, it's not that it's not important. It's just a time and a place for everything. So once you notice that it's something that you have been resisting, you know it because it's like, man, I know I should be doing this. Well, you just bring it up all the time. Well, I know I shouldn't be eating this. I know I should be at those things that you bring up. Just do it and worry about why you haven't been doing it later.
Mm-hmm.
That might help you just do it faster.
Yes. Yeah. Or it might not. And it might take you some time. Either which way.
Either way.
Keep on going. Don't stop, right? Don't stop.
Process and reflect. But that's the whole point of processing and reflecting. But don't let it be the barrier to stop you.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's all I got for today. This is amazing. I'm excited for all that you have. I know you got a busy day. You've launched this GoFundMe, this fundraiser. And so I know you got a busy day to do. You got phone calls and emails and things to follow up on. So send me the link if you haven't already. I put my phone on airplane mode. So once I take it off, it'll probably come through.
Yeah.
And then I'll add it to the description. And yes, that's all we got.
Thank you.
Next week.
Thank you so much, Wanaki. Thank you for being a space.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a space to allow me to be free. I
love this. Thank you for being free. It makes me grow. It helps me grow. I'll tell you that. All right. See you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody.
I'm going to end this.